Welcome to Golf Training Hacks. This is part 2 in our video series on how to power your golf swing with an X factor that's rarely, if ever, talked about in a lesson or instructional video, and it's called the cross-crawl pattern. In the first video in the series, we described the cross-crawl pattern. It's an X pattern of opposites that's hardwired into your neurological system, and it's the basis of human movement. It's the foundation of how we crawl, how we walk, run, throw, and create rotational power. In this video, the second of the series, we'll talk about why the cross-crawl pattern is so important for your golf swing and why many people just don't have this cross-crawl pattern tuned up as well as it could be. So let's get started. For many of us, as we get older, the neural wiring that connects the cross-crawl pattern isn't as strong as it should be. Over the years, sedentary lifestyles, lack of movement variety during the day, and exercise programs that only use arms and legs in parallel, like bench press, squats, and cycling, tend to dampen those neural connections. Now, even though those neural connections are still there, they're not as strong as they should be. They're not firing like they should be. And when that's the case, everyday movement suffers because you can't integrate and coordinate movement as well. Now, if you can't integrate and coordinate everyday movement as well, it's going to be harder to integrate and coordinate athletic movements like the golf swing. Why is improving your everyday movement quality, the way you move every day, so important to your golf swing? Well, it's because the secret to improving athletic performance is improving movement quality. And that means improving the way you move every day, not just the way you move on the field, on the course, or on the court. And that makes sense because if you have trouble with mobility, if you have trouble integrating and coordinating movement, it's going to be harder to perform an athletic movement, and it's also going to be much harder to master that athletic technique. But it also raises injury risk because it places your joints and soft tissue in more vulnerable positions if you don't have enough mobility and you have trouble integrating and coordinating movement. Now, that's even more so when the movement is a high-speed movement like the golf swing. Now, you might be saying, well, that all makes sense, but I don't see the cross-crawl pattern in the golf swing. After all, the golf swing doesn't look anything like crawling, walking, and running. And that might be true, but here's the key point. The cross-crawl pattern is not only important for driving movements like crawling and running, it's also the way we create rotational power. Now, it's very easy to see this in the pitching motion. So let's talk about the pitching motion because actually the pitching motion is very close to the motion of a golf swing. So let's see how the cross-crawl pattern shows up in the pitching motion and drives rotational power. So let's take a look at the motion of a right-handed pitcher. Now don't forget, the cross-crawl pattern is the pattern of opposites, right? We're talking about opposite motion. So in a right-handed pitcher, the left leg drives forward and the right shoulder and arm are drawn back. What is this doing? Well, this is stretching the tendons and fascia from the left hip across the torso into the right shoulder and arm. Now that stretching of tendons is storing potential energy. And the stretching of the fascial net, the fascia is a neural network that's innervated, that gets stretched and activated. And the fascial network, that fascial neural net, is very important for coordinating and integrating movement. So what happens when the pitcher winds up, there's a stretch across the body, just like there's movement across the body when you're walking or running, that stores potential energy, and the fascial network integrates the coordination of this movement, and then as the pitch is unwound and the ball is released, all that potential energy is released into the ball, and the fascial net coordinates the movement across the body. So it's pretty clear that you can see that the cross-crawl pattern is at work in the pitching motion to create rotational power. To test that for yourself, if you're right-handed, try to throw a ball using your right arm and your right leg. So throwing like this feels very awkward because you're not storing any potential energy, you're not creating any rotational power, and you're also not activating that all-important fascial neural net that's so important for coordinating and integrating movement. So now let's take a look at how this plays out in the golf swing. So let's take a look at the right-handed golf swing. And you're going to see pretty quickly that it's very similar to what happens in a right-handed pitching motion. In a right-handed golf swing, the right shoulder moves away from the left hip, just like it does in the pitching motion. So we're stretching tendons and the fascial network across the body. That stores potential energy in the tendons, and it's activating the fascial network, and it activates it so that it can integrate and coordinate the movement. So it's the same thing as the pitching motion. Now, it's the same thing if you don't swing correctly. So in a pitching motion, if you're throwing with the right side of your body, you're not activating fully your fascial network, and you're not storing a lot of energy in your tendons. Well, it's the same thing happens in the golf swing. If there's very little separation in the hips and shoulders and arms, if everything moves in one block, then you're not storing potential energy because you're not getting that stretch across the body. You're not activating that neural network of fascia that's integrating movement, and the movement, the swing, becomes less powerful because you're not storing and releasing much energy, and you're not activating your fascial neural network. You're not going to create a lot of power. You're not going to create rotational power, and the swing often looks very awkward, and it leads to a lot of the swing flaws that we try to avoid. So we see that, sure, the golf swing and the pitching motion doesn't look like this, but the movement of opposites creates the potential for rotational power. Exercises that tune up the cross-crawl pattern do several things. They strengthen the muscles and tendons along the fascial lines that connect the opposite sides of your body. They strengthen the neural connections of the cross-crawl pattern, and they enhance the rapid firing of your fascial neural network. And that's really important because you want reflexive responses to the environment. Because when you have reflexive responses to the environment, your movement becomes more fluid, coordinated, and powerful. Now in the next video, part 3 in this series, I'll show you how you can test how tuned up your cross-crawl pattern is, and then in future videos, we'll give you exercises that you can use to help you tune up your cross-crawl pattern. At Golf Training Hacks, we not only want you to play better golf, but we want you to move better and feel better every day, so you can play the best golf of your life for the rest of your life.